Welcome to Dateline Schools, a presentation of the St. Clair County Regional Educational Service Agency with your host, Terry Harrington.
Welcome to Dateline Schools. It's become a big part of American culture and really has an impact on our kids' lives. What are we talking about? We're talking about athletics, and in particular, high school sports. Joining us on this edition of Dateline Schools via video conference will be John Johnson. He's the Communications Director for the Michigan High School Athletic Association. And also joining us today will be a longtime local official, Mark Brochu. But before we begin talking sports, let's tune in for this edition of Education Update.
Thank you, Terry. The second week of November marks National Homeless Awareness Week, and employees at RESA are chipping in to help the nearly 400 local students identified as being homeless. During the month, Homeless Student Assistance Program Coordinator Laura McDowell is collecting items for a basic needs drive, including linens, hygiene items, first aid supplies, and cleaning supplies. The items will be distributed to Safe Horizons in Port Huron, which operates the Pathways Homeless Shelter. The Homeless Student Assistance Program coordinates connections between students and their home schools and provides educational support so that students whose families lose their homes don't fall behind in their schooling. Several Woodland students are participating in the school's Community and Leisure Recreation Program. The program gives students the opportunity to attend recreational events that feature both a physical activity and an art project. The events are usually held off-site, though some, such as snowshoeing and swimming, take place at the school. This month, students are visiting the Pine River Nature Center, where they hike the center's trails and work on a leaf project. Physical activity teacher Jen Egan and music and arts teacher Shelley Scahill say that in addition to allowing students to socialize with their friends and get out in the community, the trips give them a chance to try new activities. RESA's Education Services Department recently gave local fifth graders the chance to discover their musical interests. The department sponsored a concert by the Port Huron-Sarnia International Symphony Orchestra at McMorran Place. The annual concert introduces students to orchestra music and helps them decide whether they'd like to play in the school band when they reach middle school. The concert features each orchestral section, such as strings, brass, and percussion, so that students can determine if they are interested in a particular instrument. Finally, just a reminder that Thanksgiving break is November 24th through 26th. That means, of course, that Christmas break is just around the corner. All county districts will start Christmas vacation on Monday, December 20th and return to school on Monday, January 3rd. Be sure to mark your calendars. That concludes this edition of Education Update. I'm Yvette Pichet. Dateline Schools with Terry Harrington returns in a moment.
Hi, my name is Joe Staley. I'm a graduate of Central Michigan University and currently an offensive lineman for the San Francisco 49ers. Also, I love reading. My mother is a school librarian here in Michigan, and research indicates that students in schools with certified school librarians have higher test scores. When I attended college, I understood the importance of knowing how to research using the internet as well as the library, and school librarians taught me that. Does your student's school have a certified school librarian? If not, ask why.
Welcome back to Dateline Schools. We all know sports plays a big role in our American culture, but what is the impact on our local high school students and the community as a whole? So what better way to find out than to talk to the governing body of high school athletics here in the state of Michigan. So joining us via video conference from his office in Lansing is the Communications Director for the Michigan High School Athletic Association, John Johnson. And John, welcome to the program today.
Good afternoon, Terry. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how important is athletics to student life and to our communities all across this great state of Michigan?
Well, you know, we always say that athletics are a good part of education, and we have to remember that they're extracurricular. You know, they're extra in the respect that they come after the school day, chronologically and in importance, but they complement the curricular side, what kids learn in the classroom. And there's all kinds of statistics that talk about kids who participate in school sports having higher grade point averages, fewer discipline problems. The list goes on and on. So it contributes to a well-rounded education. It contributes to a well-rounded school atmosphere. And when you have that going, it can't help but make a good positive impact on our communities, because you know, some people would describe athletics kind of as the front porch. Sometimes I've heard that description used with universities. But go to any football game, especially early in the season on a Friday night, and people who don't see each other all year long have come to that football game, maybe not necessarily to watch the football game, but to engage each other and to get together in the community and find out what's going on in the community. And that's also a platform through which schools let our public know the good things that are going on in school sports. So it's good for kids and it's good for communities.
How many students across Michigan participate in athletics?
Just over 300,000 participants. Now that covers kids who play 2 and 3 sports, which unfortunately is becoming more and more rare in our largest schools. It's still a staple in our medium to small schools. But out of a statewide student population of somewhere around 525,000, I believe it is, at MHSAA member schools. Last year we had close to 305,000 participants in high school sports. So even as that student population does dwindle, just like the population right now in Michigan is dwindling, participation, though, is very stable. And in fact, nationally, participation in high school sports is at an all-time high.
And here we are in the month of November, and this is the final month for your fall sports seasons. And that's where the fans can really participate too, especially going to Ford Field for the high school championships. And of course, you got swimming, cross country, and a whole bunch of others too. So how's that participation going?
Participation continues to be, like we say, it continues to be high, and November is absolutely a big month because you start the month with soccer and cross country, and then the girls volleyball tournament is going on. That tournament will wrap up the weekend before Thanksgiving in Battle Creek, same weekend as the swimming finals. And then, of course, Thanksgiving, we get about 65,000 people. We'll all hop in the car and head downtown to Ford Field, and that's a marvelous facility for us to play our finals in football.
And what a thrill for those kids to participate in a venue like that.
Well, they get a big kick out of it. You know, they got a big kick out of it even when it was in the Pontiac Silverdome, and not to diminish the Silverdome. And long story short, one time I was talking to a coach of a UP team from the Western UP. We were walking on the field at 8 o'clock in the morning before a 10 o'clock football game, and the kids are just gawking at the vastness of the Silverdome and everything. And they say, big thing for these kids to see something like this. And the coach said, hey, until Wednesday night, they had never even seen the Mackinac Bridge.
Oh, wow.
And so, you know, we talk about what do these things bring to the table for our kids, is that they bring great experiences for them that they'll remember for a lifetime.
Great. Now, the Michigan High School Athletic Association is the governing body for most high school sports in Michigan. So what is the role that the MHSAA plays?
Well, we're the service organization. We're free to our schools to belong to. We're not taxpayer supported in any way. It's voluntary membership. Every year by school board resolution, schools join the MHSAA, and the only requirement of membership is to uphold the rules in the handbook as their own and be the first line of enforcement. And so out of 760 some odd member schools, about 130 or so of which are private, parochial, faith-based schools. We have the majority of the high schools in the state are public high schools, that is, are members of the association.
Okay. Is the MHSAA also part of more of a national organization or larger picture than just the state of Michigan?
Well, that's correct. The National Federation of State High School Associations, which is headquartered in Indianapolis, was created by a group of state associations like Michigan from the Midwest back in the 1920s to try to provide some structure, to further structure to school sports, and that includes the game rules. So the primary function of the National Federation is to write the playing rules for all of these sports. Imagine it as an NCAA without tournaments. That's how it services the state associations, and then the state associations provide service to schools in terms of the structure that goes around it for local tournaments culminating in statewide championships, and then rules, standards for conduct and eligibility and those kinds of things.
Well, in addition to that too, here in Michigan, aren't you also responsible for the officials who oversees the game activities?
Oh, absolutely. We'll register nearly 13,000 officials, Terry, in any given year. In fact, a sign of the economy is that when the economy goes south, officiating registrations go up, because people are looking for an opportunity not only to become engaged in the games, but to try to pick up a little bit of spare coin. But yeah, no contest involving our member schools can take place without registered officials being present. And so every year we go through the process of signing up new officials or re-signing up officials, and of that 13,000, every year we have to replace 1,500 to 2,000 of them. Over 10% have to be replaced because they've had some kind of a life-changing event. Either they retire, or maybe their kids are playing sports now and they want to watch. And so they leave us for a few years and they come back, or whatever it is. But I don't know of too many businesses out there that lose over 10% of their workforce and are able to regenerate it every year.
Yeah, quite the daunting task, isn't it?
It is.
Now, what do you also provide training for coaches, for the student athletes and the officials as well?
Well, we have programs that schools can take advantage of, and officiating training is handled at the local level. As you know, as a registered official yourself, local officials associations do a lot of that. Although there is some training that takes place with rules meetings that we conduct for every sport. But we provide in-service for athletic directors to bring them up on the rules and regulations and some of the potholes they may encounter being a building athletic director. Our coaches of our program of athletic coaches involved Progress, I believe, CAP, is a program where we get about 1,000 to 2,000 coaches come through CAP every year to learn more about coaching than just the X's and the O's of their sport. And in the last decade, we have gotten into doing more with student leadership training, and we're doing some of that this fall. We're wrapping up a series of sportsmanship summits around the state where we get kids to come in from schools, and they go through a day basically of leadership training that then they would take back to their schools, and hope that that fans out the kinds of things that they need to model by example the kind of conduct that is becoming at athletic educational events.
And also, I know you also have another program, I just can't remember the name of it offhand, where you try to get some high school students or just out of high school into the officiating ranks too. Tell us about that.
Well, that's our legacy program. And the legacy program actually involves students as young as high school juniors. They could start officiating sub-varsity and junior high middle school games under the tutelage of an approved official. In fact, it's possible for a high school senior who has, I believe, turned 18 and has gone through legacy could start doing sub-varsity games even without a approved official by his or her side. And we get only about 100 kids during the course of the year. So that's something we're always banging the drum for, because if every school would give us one kid every year, we'd never have a problem with our numbers for officiating.
That's great. I know a couple of years ago, the MHSAA was involved in a lawsuit that went all the way up to the Supreme Court because of some Title IX things. And the result was changing of several schedules. Basketball, girls basketball, for example, now run the same time the boys do, and different things. How's that whole thing working out? Got the bugs worked out and things working okay now?
Well, we have the mechanics worked out of how things work now. There are still some things that are being fought at the local level. It's called the prime time issue, particularly in basketball. For those leagues and conferences which play double headers involving the boys team and the girls team, who plays first? We knew that was predictable. That would be a battleground. But the things that we knew that would happen, happened. Attendance has gone down in basketball, regular season and tournament. Participation in basketball, both genders, has gone down at a rate faster than the population has. The same has happened in volleyball. And the lightning rod issue of this whole thing, college scholarships, well, they're down for girls in basketball and volleyball as well. So if they ask you, how's it working out for you? Yeah, we're getting used to it, but the losses are monumental.
Well, a couple of quick questions as we wrap up this afternoon. How are you funded as an organization? You said it's not with tax dollars. Membership is free. So how are you guys functioning and keeping things afloat?
Well, it comes from the gate at our tournament events. Of a $9 million budget, a large hunk of that, which goes back to schools in reimbursements for travel and for hosting tournaments. About 92% of that comes when you buy that $5 ticket, which is still one of the greatest bargains out there, to a high school tournament event. And then the most of that last 10% is officials registrations, and some of it very modest numbers in terms of television revenues and corporate sponsorships. But we've got to look at ways, Terry, to try to make that 90% number go down, because you know, we think that attendance will go down you know, as the population shift occurs. And like any other good business, we need to learn how to diversify ourselves in order to be able to continue to serve schools.
Like in our schools and like in society in general, the internet's playing a bigger role in everyday life. And I know one thing you have started in the last year or so is broadcasting some games over the internet. Tell us about that real quick.
Well, the MHSAA network was a creation of When We Were Young Productions from Madison, Wisconsin. And they brought to us what we call the digital broadcasting program, where schools can create and put their own games, student-produced, on the MHSAA.TV website. It's a safe harbor where you know, they're not 1 or 2 clicks away from things which might be distasteful. We see that in time as a potential revenue source. We're trying to do more with schedules and scores. On any given Friday night during the regular season in football, we'll have 80% of the scores at MHSAA.com by 11 o'clock at night. So we're trying to do more with the web in terms of being kind of a full-service organization, not just to educators and kids and coaches and officials, but also to you know, John Q. fan. And also, it's one of those things that we look at that may be something that would replace revenues, that we feel that the losses will be coming at attendance to our state tournament series events.
Well, John, it's time for us to take a break. I really appreciate you giving us some insight of one of the important organizations to keep our sports teams running here in the state of Michigan. Really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, Terry. We appreciate that. And if you ever want to learn more about us, just go out to MHSAA.com.
Great. Thank you, John. When we come back, we're going to have the opportunity to meet one of the local officials here in St. Clair County, so don't go away.
Hey.
Ready to go?
Yeah, but the fire's not out.
It's close enough.
Close enough? If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. I mean, the next thing you know, you've torched our whole neighborhood.
Which is why we're not going anywhere?
Exactly. 9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome back to Dateline Schools, and continuing with our theme talking about high school athletics. Joining me now on the set is Mark Brochu. He's a local football and other sports official. So Mark, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
So Mark, in addition to football, what other sports do you officiate here for Michigan High School Athletic Association?
Currently, for the last several years, the only other sport I'm doing is track and cross country. Years ago, I did the full montage of basketball and softball and baseball, but in the last 10, 15 years, it's been track and cross country and football.
Great. How long have you been officiating?
35 years, I think. I think this is my 35th year, so.
So you're really making a career of it.
Yeah, it's been fun, so you stick with it. So
why does someone like yourself get into officiating?
I grew up in an athletic family. Football, or the 3 major sports was all-consuming at the time. So, and my father was a football official, so that was probably the main link.
Do you find that most of your colleagues get into it because of a family member or a friend or someone that encouraged them to get into it?
Yeah, I think there has to be a personal contact. I don't know of too many people that just go on seek it out. Usually there's a mentor of some kind involved with bringing them into the profession.
So your dad was your mentor then?
Yeah, yeah. He did football for 25 years, and my brother was slated to be starting linebacker, and so he just kind of slid the equipment over to me and says, "You do it now."
There you go.
So the initial expense is sometimes expensive. I was lucky in that I was just given his equipment and started from there.
Great. What do you get out of this as being an official, especially for as long as you've done it?
Well, I think the main thing for me is seeing the kids and seeing the reaction of kids in certain situations. That's the main thing. I mean, you see the good, the bad, the ugly, but some of the good is really neat stuff to see. And then the camaraderie amongst officials themselves. I think for me, both of those things keep me coming back.
I think that's one of the things that surprised me when I got into officiating a couple of years ago. And then, of course, people like you took me under the wing and helped me out, too. That was something special for me. But yeah, that camaraderie, I thought, is something really neat, and I haven't experienced that in anything else.
Right, and yeah, it's almost like we got to stick together because sometimes we're criticized, and I think that brotherhood is from the adversity is kind of makes the bonds a little stronger.
Something else that really kind of surprised me too is the professionalism that's involved at the high school level.
Right, I think everybody wants to do it the right way and have the best event for the kids. And so you try to be as professional as possible. Years ago, one of the senior officials that I grew up, looking up to said, you know, the goal was to be invisible at the end of the game, for the spectators and the kids not to remember you. Mm-hmm. Because it should be all about the kids.
Great. And now with today's, with instant replay and all that, the officials, especially at the college and the pro game, really have more of a focus, don't they?
Yeah, I can't imagine that level of scrutiny, but they're high achievers that make it to that level, so I think they're well up to it. It's very tough scrutiny when you're making split-second decisions and then having somebody slow motion review your judgment.
Mm-hmm. Hey, what kind of training is there for high school officials these days?
It's pretty much hands-on learning, and as you know, when you broke in with football, is a lot of times it's just getting hooked up with an experienced official, read the rule book. That's especially if you're not real conversant with the rules, is to dig into the rule book. But a lot of it is hands-on, learn the mechanics, learn what you're supposed to do. A lot of the things you're supposed to do, they have to become rote memory. Otherwise, you're thinking about where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be thinking about, well, was that an infraction? So that's the first step, is learn where you're supposed to be and what you're supposed to be doing in every situation, and then continuing to be more familiar with the rules. The good thing about football is often there's an opportunity between plays to talk to other officials, and if there's a question about a call, maybe correct a call or make a wave off a flag. Mm-hmm. So,
now that's really important though, as a crew, to really have good communication skills amongst the 3, 4, 5 members, depending on what level you're doing.
Absolutely. In football, I referee and wear the white hat, and what people don't understand is each official doesn't see the whole play. They have an assigned area that they're responsible for looking at, and at the end of the play, if there's a penalty enforcement and something happened downfield, I don't know what happened, and so it's really important for the covering official to come up and explain what happened, because I don't know. Because if I see the end of the play, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, in an earlier segment, we had John Johnson from the High School Athletic Association. They're talking about using the internet more. How are they using that to help officials now?
It's really a neat development, and not too many years ago, just to go to a clinic and have somebody have videotapes of situations and talk about them was just really state of the art. Now you can go on the MHSAA website, go to the section and click on plays, and just sit in your computer room or with your laptop in the bedroom and have that right at your fingertips. So it's revolving, and I think the rules and videos are just going to be easier and easier. Right now, you have to go attend a rules meeting, and I think they're going to the digital rules meeting where you can just do it from home and receive the information, do the required test, and be quickly done and not have to drive to a meeting.
Obviously, the game's quite a bit different, but do you kind of go through the same type of training for what you do at the cross country and the track level too?
Football was a little bit, there was more officials involved and there was more of a local presence. In track and field and cross country, there was much fewer officials. There was only one statewide association, so it's all done by newsletter and email. So that's distinctly different. And in track and field, usually you're working by yourself unless you're working a bigger meet where you have multiple officials. But it's a different, a more independent contractor thing with track than it is football. Football is all about the crew that you're working with.
Now, how do you get assigned games? What's the process there? Or do you have to go out, call the athletic director, say, hey, we're available Friday night. Do you need somebody to work the game?
In football, it's evolving from go out and get your own games with individual athletic directors. And now it's evolving more to assigners that are contracted by the schools to schedule their officials. And track and cross country, it's 100% contracted through the athletic directors. But in football and the major sports, it's through the assigners usually.
Do you guys as a crew have a lot of interaction with the coaches on the sidelines too?
Yep, some games more than others. The frustration for most officials is the confusion over rules from various levels. So oftentimes you get the comment about the rule. It's an uncatchable pass is the most common one. It's an uncatchable pass, therefore there shouldn't be pass interference. Well, obviously that's a Sunday rule. That's not a Friday rule, and we have to call the high school rules, and sometimes there's confusion, and so you have to sometimes explain the differences between the various rules.
And I imagine that really comes to play when you hear those fans up in the stands too, isn't it? Yeah,
the fans are sometimes the loudest fans are the least informed. So, but most officials don't hear that, or it's automatically screened out. So most of the communication is with the coaching staff.
Now I know highlights for many of the crews is not just doing the regular season games, although that's the main focus, but it's getting those state tournaments. How do you get selected for that?
Well, after each game, the coaches involved in the contest are required to rate the officials on the 1 to 5 scale, and then there's a cumulative rating that you received for each year, and then you have a 3-year average. That's the initial criteria, and then it's based on recommendations from local officials associations, from assigners, and from a committee that's formed to pick officials for postseason play.
Have you had a chance to do some postseason games?
Yeah, I've been fortunate to do a couple regional finals. I've done numerous pre-districts and districts. So it's always fun, and it's easier. It's easier because those teams that make it to that level usually are better organized, better coached, more disciplined. So those games are really a pleasure to do.
And I imagine that's a goal for a lot of the officials, is to get to the higher level at the state tournament, regardless of the sport.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Now you also mentioned an officials association. Is there one locally?
The local officials association for football is the Eastern Michigan Officials Association. It also handles soccer officials and then baseball and softball. So that's the main association locally. There are some in Metro Detroit, several in Metro Detroit that are also options for officials.
What did you have to do to become an official other than express an interest? Was there a registration process or whatever? What did you have to do?
There's a registration process, but before you get to that for football, well, you register and then they send you an open book test on the mechanics. And the mechanics are, what are you supposed to be doing as an official in every situation? So there's an open book test on the mechanics, and you have to pass that. And if you pass that, then you're then you're accepted as an official. You're required to join a local association. If you want to be eligible for local postseason play, you have to attend the annual rules meeting for that sport and be a member in good standing with the local association.
Somebody came up to you and said, Mark, I always loved playing basketball or football or baseball or whatever the sport would be, and I think maybe about becoming an official. What would you tell them?
I say you'll love it. It'll be your way to get back involved with the game. and be on the field, because on the field or on the court is different than in the bleachers or watching it on TV. You get a different appreciation, and I encourage them to go to the website and register, and if they need a mentor, I'm more than willing to answer their questions and help them get involved.
And I guess the cool thing too is that officials are just like the guys in the stands, somebody who enjoys the game and enjoys being with kids.
That's the #1 requirement. There's a lot of time and effort that goes into officiating, so if you don't have a love for that sport, then you're not going to put in the time and effort to do it right.
Well, Mark, wish you all the best as the season progresses here, and thank you for joining us on Dateline Schools. And thank you for joining us for this edition of Dateline Schools.